The Super Bowl was a close and compelling football game last night with the Los Angeles Rams beating the Cincinnati Bengals 23-20. But as always, there was also a lot of attention around the halftime show. That was again the case this year, with the program centered on hip-hop legends, coming at a time when the NFL's record on race remains under scrutiny. Amna Nawaz looks at the message, the optics, and contradictions of that show as part of our Race Matters series.
Judy, those icons were Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Mary J. Blige, Eminem, and Kendrick Lamar, with a special guest appearance from 50 Cent. Their performance put race, justice, and the NFL's handling of those issues center stage. To discuss all that, I'm joined by New York Times culture critic and Pulitzer Prize winner Wesley Morris. Wesley, welcome back to the NewsHour. Thanks for making the time. So among the many reactions to the halftime show I saw, some people said it was like a battle between enthusiasm and cynicism, that you could have all of these hip-hop greats assembled in a fantastic show, objectively a really good show. At the same time, the stage they're on is hosted by the NFL, which is facing years of allegations of racism, a lawsuit from a former coach, a black man who alleges he was discriminated against. I'm curious which side you fell on as you watched it. Are you enthusiastic or cynical?
You know, the thing about the halftime show, every single year, at least since 2004, I believe that's the Justin Timberlake year, the halftime show has become this crucible of not only what the NFL is about, but what this country stands for when it comes to the treatment of women, the treatment of African Americans. This year, obviously, was a big deal for a lot of music fans and, you know, for music historians in some way, pop music historians, because hip hop had been given its own show instead of being an additive element to someone else's show or like part of a larger pop music oriented spectacle. And so that raised a lot of questions about what responsibility these artists had to bring up the NFL's questionable racist hiring practices. It put a lot of pressure on these artists, you know, in this case, Dr. Dre, Kendrick Lamar, and Snoop Dogg, who are all from South Los Angeles. And, you know, in the one sense, these are artists playing their hometown, right? Inglewood is not terribly far from where they grew up. And, you know, so there is this sort of sweetness to what they're being asked to do. But it's, you know, all of these artists in some ways intersect with the American political moment, especially Kendrick Lamar. And so they all knew what they were dealing with. And so in that sense, you know, I'm for a good halftime show, but I'm also for the reality that the ground upon which these shows take place has got a lot of landmines on it.
Well, so how do you reconcile the two? This is the conversation, right? This is the heart of the question, because you got to go back in time, right? 2016 is when Colin Kaepernick first took a knee in protest of, yes, racial injustice, but also specifically police brutality against black people. He goes as a free agent, never plays a day again in the NFL, and now you have the headliner of the halftime show, Dr. Dre. His lyrics is still not loving the police. Eminem takes a knee during the performance. So it all stood out to people as saying, okay, protests are okay in the NFL, but not if you're one of the players.
I hear the complaint that people have about like the discrepancy between what can happen in a halftime show and what can happen on the field. I think the NFL, the idea that you and I are having this conversation, Amna, and the NFL isn't really answering for much of anything. You know, they get to like have people like us have these conversations about what it is or is not doing. And I think the interesting thing and the important thing about this Brian Flores suit against the league is that it is going to force the league to explain why it's not following its own guidelines when it comes to hiring, you know, the racism in the league and the sexism in the league. I think it's up to the criminal justice system. I think it's up to players to continue to speak out against things happening in the league.
So I'll put to you as well, I think, what defenders of the NFL will say, that it's not just about the halftime show, right? That the longstanding criticism, You're talking about a league that is 70% of the players are black, only one, I believe, coach right now is a black man.
Mike Tomlin.
And
Mike Tomlin, yep.
That's right, the Steelers, right? So they will point to the entire Super Bowl as, this cultural moment where they had end racism messages in the end zones, and Mickey Guyton sang the Star-Spangled Banner, and Mary Mary performed Lift Every Voice, known as the Black National Anthem, right? And a lot of folks will look at that and say, it is performative. You need to do better. Is that criticism fair?
Absolutely, yes. I do think, though, that the criticism kind of, I don't know, it's an ongoing, enduring criticism. It's as old as American popular entertainment in some ways. But I think the real question that the league has to answer for, because black people don't have to answer for anything in this situation as far as I'm concerned. I think the league has to answer why it can be mostly black players, and, the people doing the work on the field can be mostly black, but yet that can't be translated. You're telling me that nobody is good enough to run strategy on these teams, that no black person anyway is good enough to run strategy on these teams. I don't believe that. And if the league believes that, it should say that instead of doing the smoke and mirrors thing with having people, know exactly what happened to Brian Flores, being called into an interview for a job that had already been filled by someone else.
That is Wesley Morris, culture critic of the New York Times, joining us tonight. Wesley, thanks so much. Always good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Amna. It was a pleasure to be here.